Welcome, everyone, to the Return to Play podcast, where all we care about is helping you return to play without limitations. I'm here with Dane, our Director of Fitness at St. Pete Calisthenics, and we are here in the Biooptimization Institute of St. Pete Calisthenics, essentially. Again, if this is your first time tuning in, we have a number of businesses that operate out of St. Pete Calisthenics. There are 7 in total. Biooptimization Institute is one of the few that you'll see as you first come in the door, but they focus on a lot of the cool wellness and cellular healing modalities. So you'll see a lot of this equipment behind us is part of theirs. We'll talk with them a little bit more in future episodes. But today we're going to be talking a little bit about what the importance of movement correction is before we get to applying external load in the more traditional exercise fashion, and what we've noticed over our time as trainers and our clients, and what the movement dysfunctions with load end up doing to the body over time, and how much more challenging it gets undoing some of those patterns once you've been doing them for 10 or 15 years that way. So I wanted to bring Dane on and talk a little bit about his active life certification and some of the main points behind that certifying body and what their mission is, and sort of segue into how it complements our return to play efforts here and the St. Pete Calisthenics mission as a whole. So I don't know if you have a couple of initial thoughts on your experience with active life, but if you want to give us a little bit of a rundown on what their goal is and what drew you to them and kind of where you're at now.
Yeah, I feel like it fits really well. When I first came in here, the idea of return to play, I was like, oh, that's basically active life. Like it's synonyms essentially for the same thing.
And I had never heard of active life somehow. I think I had seen a couple of their more viral ones where he's sitting in the chair and just getting people to ask him questions. That was the content that I think I was fed.
That was more recently that he's been doing some of that. I feel
so maybe that's not even it. Maybe it was someone else doing a similar thing, and I just saw the resemblance. But
it's like ask me about fitness. I know things or something like that, and then people come up, and half the time people are just avoiding him. But then every now and then you get a gem that pops up, and it's like, all right, bingo, Instagram that. Yeah, I'd say I guess I can't speak 100%, but from my experience, they pretty much came out of like the CrossFit space a little bit. I know that Dr. Sean, he owned a CrossFit gym or was part of a CrossFit affiliate at some point. So that was my experience, because since I had the CrossFit background, coming out of playing soccer in college, I was like, what the hell am I gonna do with my life? And then I'm like, oh, I can do this fitness, like a sport kind of thing. Like, so being a college athlete, it just like was a good transition. Then from there, I think at some point I stumbled upon some of their content and some of their stuff, and their whole idea is getting people out of pain without going to the doctor or missing the gym. That was like one of their old taglines. So I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. If I want to be like a coach at some kind of like level, professionalized coach or trainer, I should learn how to do that. So it took like their intro workshop, in-person like range of motion workshop, where you go over some of the foundational stuff like joint by joint approach and things like that. Then after doing that, I was like, all right, I want the next thing. So then I did like a 12-week immersion course, which was online, where they go further in depth through. They're teaching you about tendon issues and how to manage people and all this stuff. It's a lot more in-depth version. From there, I want to say that at some point along the way, they could just kind of like phased out of the CrossFit space. I wanted to be a little bit more broad fitness, like certifying body. So they kind of started making that as like a thing. And now it's, if you were to sign up today, it would be like a 13-month curriculum for the core curriculum. So at minimum of 13 months at least. Some people I think takes longer. And then, which is a big contrast to like a NASM certification or some of those other ones that you can get actually quite quickly. Then there's specialty courses following it. So at this point, I've done 2 specialty courses with them. A longevity specialty and then neurological considerations, which I have just finished up, which is nice.
Very cool. And I know that's a big piece of corrective exercise for sure, is dealing with the neurological system and how it can guard certain areas of the body and how it'll remember old injuries and how to unwind some of these default patterns that you've been hanging on to for so long.
Yeah, there's a big aspect of like breath work. They have a piece in the core curriculum with breath work, and it's relating more towards like that central nervous system and things like that, which it's important in there. But the course I just finished was more of like people with like neurological disorders like Parkinson's or like cerebral palsy and stroke, traumatic brain injuries, like things like that.
Like larger issues.
Yeah, like
gotcha.
Yeah, if they have to, which I feel like is actually decent overlap for maybe people that come to Biooptimization Institute. If they have some kind of concussion, they run their concussion protocol and things like that out of here. So it's like a good extension of like, okay, now they can do the cool protocols and the fancy machines and all the stuff that's needed, but then integrate back into like actual movement and movement patterns. Like how can you actually train and get back to working out again?
Reintegrate the whole system and feel confident with it.
Yep, exactly.
I know that's another large part that we deal with clients in this pain cycle that they tend to come to us in is the stress that it can create and the loops that sends you in. And that's a lot of the neurological system having its anxieties about, am I going to heal again? Will I get better? Is there hope for me? I've been dealing with this for so long now, I'm kind of questioning if it's actually able to get better. Do I need that surgery?
Yep.
And the psycho side of the biopsychosocial parameters and really utilizing the breath work to help downregulate if that's what we need to help decrease the stress so we start healing and recovering properly from those intended loads that we're placing on the body.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to like that behavioral change aspect too, because we can talk about corrective exercise as much as we want, but actually I was just explaining to a client, it's like you can do this fancy corrective exercise for your upper traps, sure, but then if you just go immediately into the next exercise in a terrible position without reinforcing the idea that we were just trying to teach you, then that corrective exercise does nothing for you.
It didn't sink in at all because you immediately went back to that default pattern as soon as you changed the exercise again. So
you have to apply it to the thing that you want to do. Like do the exercise, apply it, and then try to do that throughout the day as well. Because then if you just go back to your computer for 23 more hours of the day, or maybe not 23, but you get the idea. You have 1 hour a day of exercise for most people. Maybe if you're lucky, you have 2 hours a day.
Yep.
But the rest of that time, if you're reinforcing those bad patterns, then you can do all the fancy corrective stuff you want, but it might not have much change.
And I think that's something that I did hear from one of our class attendees a couple of days ago was he was noticing, he's like, since you pointed out this stuff with my shoulders, I'm finding all random points throughout the day. I'm like way up here for no reason. And he's like, okay, no, pull them down, reset. Like those are what we want you to find throughout the day because those are the wins where you're going to change your default posture is by calling it out.
Yep.
And that's
partly why like we sit on the floor for these things. So like I feel like I'm in bad posture sometimes, but then you see me probably like fidget and like sure my traps are like overdoing it right now, but as long as I'm here for a brief period of time, it's not a big deal. It's when you're stuck like that all day long that it's bad.
Exactly. And that is a big reason why we're doing the podcast on the floor. One, to introduce some of our guests we eventually have to the benefits of ground sitting, but to also show you guys this is something that we really encourage because of that fidgeting aspect. As we're sitting here, we're getting feedback from our hips, from our knees, from our spines, all of that to make sure that we're adjusting every handful of minutes in a way that's going to continue to allow our bodies to stay mobile and happy. So there's a lot of different benefits that come when you start making this shift. And one of those is a tie into your hip flexors and your low back pain. So for those of you who tend to deal with a lot of chronic back pain, if the second you stand up, you have to kind of grab your back because you feel that initial pull, that's those hip flexors talking to you saying like, hey, you need to ease out of this position because you've been in here so long that I'm just yanking on your lumbar region right now.
Tight and stiff and short all the time. I think actually I was just looking that one functional report that you just gave me, like under the goals section for her, it said sitting, and in my head I was like, it's a funny goal to have, is like sitting as your goal. But when you reframe it as to what we're talking about in terms of sitting, it's like you want to like learn how to sit better or sit in a chair less and do more floor. Like, so you're reorienting the goal. But just at first look, I was like, our goal is to sit.
Yeah, I didn't get to give you too much of the backstory on that one, but that's someone who's had a hip replacement, and since the hip replacement, she can't sit down and be comfortable at all. Yeah. Like, she did our entire assessment standing because she just doesn't want to sit as often as possible. So one of our goals is how can we get you comfortably able to sit? And a little bit of a...
Actually, that's not the first person that has done that. There was someone that we did also in the beginning with, she wanted to stand as well, or he or she, I forget who it was. But yeah, they were like, pulled up a chair, like, all right, in front of the whiteboard, we're going to do this thing. And like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm like, okay.
Totally all right.
Like, they're in that much discomfort or pain when sitting, like, and yet they made the effort to come in here and explore like what the Return to Play program is. So like, I feel like maybe some people, they think it's too much or they're not ready for it or all that. And it's like, never really going to be ready for it. Like, you need to be mentally ready for it, right? Because the physical changes, that's the whole reason that we need you in here. It's because you need those changes. Like, if you're putting it off forever, then you're not doing yourself any favors.
I always tie that little tidbit back to an analogy where I compare us as people and biological beings. We're very similar to plants still, in that if you're not growing and getting stronger, then you're weakening and getting less capable, right? There's really no maintenance. So the longer you put it off, the farther of a hole you're usually going to be digging out of.
I guess maintenance would be like a little bit better, a little bit worse, a little bit better, a little bit worse, a little bit better. Like,
and it's never stagnant. It's going to have a little bit of that ebb and flow. Yeah. But if you're not trying to get your body to adapt better to it and you're just waiting, then that means it's doing the opposite and it's regressing, and time is of the essence. Especially
like if you're not doing any kind of movement ever, you're declining. Is what you mean?
So like, if all you do is wake up, I go to work, I come home, I grab my Uber Eats, and I hang out until the night's over, and I go to bed and do the whole thing again the next day, like, you're not getting any stimulus to those muscles, so there's no reason they're ever going to grow. Your bones are going to start atrophying as far as mineral density wise and all of that, because you're not giving any sort of reason for your body to keep up those metabolic processes. And as soon as your body realizes, hey, you're not using this, that use it or lose it principle applies, and it'll just be like, oh, okay, you're not going to do this, so I'm not going to maintain this structural integrity anymore, or I'm not going to maintain this pliability in my Achilles tendon because you're not jumping anymore. So why do I need to why do I need to keep that skill?
The SAID principle, specific adaptations to impose demands. So it's rather
imposing any demands on it, your body is just,
you don't need that. That's something else we talk about as well in the Return to Play, is like stress plus recovery equals the adaptation that you want to get. But it's key, like, you need both. You can't have one without the other. If you have no stress, like you said, you're not applying stress to your bones, tendons, ligaments, like muscles, you're not going to have any adaptation. So you need to have that stress there, but then you also need to recover from that stress. I think that's the opposite route is like what I saw actually when I was in CrossFit gyms a lot of, is not enough recovery, not nearly enough recovery, more workout, more reps, more speed, more intensity, more stress, and then the recovery is declining. So actually their adaptations were lesser because they kept pounding themselves to the ground, pounding themselves to the ground, pounding themselves to the ground. They never have that recovery factor to like actually get back up to baseline. And they are like perceiving that they may be a bit fitter than they were before. But it's kind of comes down to more like newbie gains, where it's like after 2-3 years of doing that, you start to see problems or plateaus and all this stuff like that.
And then now you've been snatching in a less desirable fashion for this amount of time, so you're having to retrain that whole movement again after being hurt by it. It can be defeating because you're like, well, now I can't cross it anymore, or I shouldn't deadlift anymore, or I shouldn't do this anymore. But it's not really the movement that was the issue. It was the lack of consistent load placed on it, and then you asking it to just do it again out of nowhere. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm just going to go deadlift again today, and they haven't deadlifted in months, and they just try to go right back up to warming up with 185, and it's like, well, you maybe want to back off to a plate on each side, get your mechanics back down because it's been a little while, and let your tissues wake up some.
Like, I just want to see where I'm at. That's like the famous quote. I just want to see where I'm at.
Yeah, you're essentially stepping up to a competition type of lift, and you haven't prepared at all.
Yeah, no.
You're detrained.
No prep.
Your tissues are way down here in their tolerance area, and you're putting a max effort
heavy load
at your best on the system.
Like a lot of people, they can't even like touch their toes, but yet they're trying to pick up like more than their body weight off of the floor. And it's like, you can't even get into that position in order to lift it. So then you know that something is compensating for. Going back to how we started this conversation, is like, you need to have that range of motion first, then you need to establish strength and control and strengthen that range of motion. Then you can actually lift it and apply the intensity. But that range has to be there.
And I think that reminded me of the pyramid that's in part of our return to play talks, where it's, you know, volume recovery, flexibility, mobility, strength, skill. I see deadlift is like, that's a skill.
Like some people say strength is a skill. I think it's Pavel, I don't know how to say his last name, kettlebell guy, you know, strong first. Yeah, strength is a skill.
I 100% agree. I think both of those boxes, they should have a little bit of a distinction, because obviously like a handstand is like a skill without super strength forward. You need certain areas of strength. If you consider deadlift only strength but not skill oriented, you're not going to be paying attention to all the different things you need to be paying attention to execute that skill at that 405 new 1 rep max that you're trying to hit, or whatever it might be. That skill focus needs to be there first before you strength rep it out to your maximum potential.
So, and actually, like within, if you take CrossFit as it's intended to be, there's another pyramid, they just call it mechanics first. You have to have the proper mechanics down. So if you don't have proper mechanics, then we need to work on that, and we need to maybe work on the flexibility, the mobility, or whatever it is. From there, you need to do that consistently well. So does every rep actually look the same? If you just did one good rep and then the next rep is bad, it's not consistency. And then week in, week out, month in, years down the line, it's consistency. Then naturally you get to intensity as the top piece, rather than just rushing intensity, or like, that's good enough for today. Okay, time to start the workout. 20 minutes on the clock and go as fast as possible.
Throw up 80% of your number in the scope.
Like, well, your air squat was borderline at best before we started. I think by the time we get like even 5 minutes into the workout, it's going to be garbage downhill. So then what's happening for the rest of it is just cranking on joints and tissues that are not prepared for it.
Something I try to coach a lot too is just making sure that every rep feels the same as much as you can tolerate, whether it's a bench press or a dip or a whatever. Focusing on that consistency in movement, rep to rep to rep, is really where you're like, okay, I have that joint pattern ingrained. I can go heavier and heavier and not worry about my compromising my elbow position, making it more vulnerable for my shoulders. And
you know, like, I think it's what you said about feeling, like teaching the client or the athlete or whoever to feel the position that they're supposed to be in. And they are actually learning, like, oh, okay, this is what I need to, rather than you just telling them all the time, hey, fix this, hips back, fix that, fix that. It's like same crap over and over again. And then they're always relying on you to correct them. But we want to teach them to feel it so that they can now be self-sufficient and start actually making adjustments and corrections on their own. And then when they're at home by themselves, they can do the right thing and they actually move well.
And it kind of brings us to the whole point of our Return to Play program, is it is meant to have an ending. We're trying to get you back to feeling 100% confident as fast as possible. So getting that autonomy back earlier is only going to be more and more helpful for you as a client of ours to be able to take what we're dishing out and be able to apply it at home or at your home gym, or if you still go to a crunch or something like that, that you feel confident enough in what's in the program to execute without challenge. And if you felt something off in your knee or something off in any sort of position, you've been listening and understand your tools and protocols you might be able to do to help that feel a little better. Maybe I need to adjust my stance a little in or out, or my toes are too turned one direction, or I'm too heel lifted for this, I should back off a little. All those little adjustments can make or break how effective that session feels. So that's probably one of the more challenging things I've really had to help get my clients to understand, is really where that limit is when I'm not with them. You know, so really explaining RPE to a point where they really get it to the same degree that I want them to. So like, they know the severity that I'm talking about when I ask them, how many more did you have in the tank, or this or that. So when they leave me notes on the session, you can be like, oh, I did the prescribed weight, but I could have done 3 more. I'm like, okay, well, that means next time we might have a little bit of extra capacity to play with 5 more pounds or something.
Yeah, I think, and we talked about this before, as when we were kind of building out the program, is we're like a little hesitant to be too repetitive on things like that. But then we kind of came to the conclusion, like, actually, no, we need this repetition, because how many times have we heard or read an article or listened to a podcast or something about the same topic about training over and over again? And sometimes we still listen or read something and we're like we finally get that aha moment, even though it's the same concepts that we might kind of already know and we maybe already do them, but like now it's like a new way to explain it to a client for us. So like the clients coming in, they know way less about fitness than us theoretically, so they need even probably more repetition than what we're giving ourselves. So it's like it has to be part of the process to like build in that repetition, I think.
Totally agree. And you do travel around and teach some seminars through a couple different programs. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got into starting to do those and where that led as far as your desire to educate not just your clients, but also you're now educating other coaches to help be able to do what we're trying to really build here in Return to Play, but you've already been teaching other coaches kind of how to have that eye for certain things.
Yeah, so I mentioned the CrossFit aspect of it, as a lot of my coaching and development in the early days was within CrossFit gyms. Taking the active life methodology and like applying it into people with their pain and things like that. And somewhere along the line, I just kind of got the niche towards like gymnastics style training. So that's kind of what led me into the calisthenics, St. P Calisthenics. But also along the way, I got in touch with the gymnastics course, and then now it's also Bird Box coaching development. So those are the two seminars, the TGC for short, the gymnastics course, and then Bird Box coaching. It's a guy named Nathan Bird. He's based in, well, he lives in France right now, but he's an English guy. You've seen him on the Instagrams. Yeah. So yeah, that kind of led me to I think just by nature of like training more gymnastics focused work rather than going so hard into like speed and reps and CrossFit type stuff. He likes to implement more sports science and like psychosocial coaching approaches and things like that in this courses. So naturally kind of got led into that route and started doing those courses. Started out with like an internship process and then assisting, and then now I'm developed enough to lead courses around. So I've been all over for those courses, all over the US, done some in South America, Europe a couple of times.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's something I wish I got to getting into exploring, and I guess I'm in a way starting to do a similar, building my own program in the Return to Play version of it, but realizing what I was doing was so different, and it's kind of amazing that I didn't really see more of the active life stuff earlier, because I probably would have ended up wanting to do that certification. I ended up essentially learning a lot through the experiences that I had as a former athletic training student with an exercise physiology degree, seeing 10 years worth of my clients' trials and going through, different rabbit holes of neurokinetic therapy and like, why is my client not having success with this? And I would look into like what could be missing, and I'd be like, oh, that's a whole nother thing I haven't really heard about. I'll dive into this. And a lot of the stuff I was finding seems to just be what has kind of culminated into that active life curriculum, where it was a lot of, yes, there's corrective exercise, but it's a lot of lifestyle, behavioral, neurological, all of the different considerations. It's really taking the body and looking at it as the enormously complex thing that it really is. I've always kind of considered it more complex than the rocket ships we're sending up into outer space, because we still don't know everything about the body. We know enough about rockets to get them up to the moon or hopefully Mars at some point soon. So they say.
Who's they?
I don't even know.
Elon Musk.
To the moon, right? But we very much take for granted how smart our bodies are and how much they can do naturally just on their own without needing oversight from a operator. Your body just kind of knows what to do. I think we've just gotten to a point where we've gotten so disconnected with our bodies that now our brains and our bodies are like fighting each other between the social media changes and just the amount of things you're expected to get done on a day-to-day basis, and like how much social interaction you're expected to maintain these days. Like people have like hundreds of friends now. I don't, but people will say, I have people who are like, yeah, I was hanging out with these people, like they have actual friends that they hang out with that regularly. And I'm like, that takes so much time now. Since I've been opening this business, I have such a finite amount of extra time. Like it's hard to imagine supporting that many friendships. And it's just a very, very big weight, I think, on everybody's shoulders, just how many things I have to do for work, how many things I have to do to move my personal life forward, how many things I have to do to move my career forwards, my family relationships, my this, my that. So you become the lowest priority.
Should be the opposite.
Right? It should be the opposite, right? You can have a much better effectiveness, helping other people, having the energy to do all of those things if your body is in a good place to help keep that energy flowing. Mitochondrial health, sleep cycles, stress levels, all that stuff goes into how you feel on a day-to-day basis. And if you wake up not feeling super energized, how are you going to go help the little girl in the big brother big sister program that you're supposed to go meet later if you're down in the dumps about whatever didn't go your way yesterday, and
Yep.
now you're stressed out about that, so now it affects your relationship that day with
An empty cup.
that's right. That's
Like some of these things are so good from back in the day.
They are. Yeah, they just like everything in history, they start circling back. We just find new applications for those old sayings. But
You mentioned like the operator, or like someone trying to operate the body, and it's like I feel like the more, maybe like as a human species or something, like the more we think that we can mess with things to like operate in a certain way, the more we end up messing things up. Like, does that make sense? Like we start tinkering, like we got this figured out, we just need this, and then it's like, oh, there's actually this side effect from that, and it's like kind of going back to the basics, like you said, of it's repeating back to the basics, and it's like actually everything is better if you just drink water and eat the natural stuff that grows.
keep it simple, stupid. There's another one that's time tried, and I think has a lot of.
Where did that come from?
It's a really good question.
Sun Tzu.
Originations, but
That's a joke.
so making the effort to help educate our incoming trainers on some of these different unique perspectives that both Dane has from active life and I have from my experience the last 10 years, we're trying to develop a team of coaches that is taking this type of approach, looking at the whole person as a very sophisticated machine that has feelings. That sometimes can be another whole can of worms. But
Well, we're talking about pain a little bit before, and the definition that we were given out, it comes from the active life a bit as well, but there's the emotional response to the irritation that you're experiencing. So like irritation can be from 1 to 10, like excruciating to almost nearly nothing, but then the pain is more of the emotional piece that deals with uncertainty, because like you mentioned, you have fear about, am I going to get better, am I like, I don't know, I'm afraid to do this, and then now it's that loop cycle of pain. So that emotional and feelings part of it is a big factor. And like people have you seen some of those experiments where they don't actually repair the person's like meniscus or whatever, they just cut them open and then stitch them back up, and then they're like, oh yeah, it feels great, and like the outcomes versus the other person that did get the repair, it's like the same, like reported the same.
I think I've heard about it.
Was that waves? I don't have a great reference at the moment, but I could probably dig something up. But like it's like weird stuff like that with the placebo effect, and it's like, yeah, the placebo effect is real sometimes, so like kind of funky. So like the pain wasn't really actually from the damage in that case, right? Because they didn't actually repair anything. So it's like, where's this coming from? Emotional response, nervous system, and regulation, and that kind of stuff.
And I think it goes a little bit, an interesting piece probably ties into intention behind that. That person now thinks they had a surgical intervention, so they're going to think, oh, I got to heal from this. I just had a traumatic thing. So maybe their brain is sending better healing concentration to that area versus them having this chronic nagging thing that they've given up on. Now their brain is just perhaps accepted that as a new thing, and it's just starting to dull down that pain.
Yeah.
Like that used to be a 7 out of 10, maybe we're like 2 out of 3 out of 10, but they're just living with it now.
Yeah.
5 more years go by.
Or like sometimes I think about kids too. They just like fall and then they hurt themselves or whatever. But then they don't know that they're supposed to act hurt yet because they're so young. So they're just still running around doing the same thing. And it's like adults are like, oh, I need to take it easy. Like why don't we just act more like that kid? Or it's like, oh, let's just have fun.
just get back up and keep going.
Yeah, it's just a funny perspective when you're thinking about pain and like what it actually is.
And we all perceive it differently, and we all react a little more at an individual level, I think, with pain than a lot of people realize. So one thing that we also educate on in the Return to Play program is how to properly communicate with us. So just telling us if we're in the middle of an exercise, hey, this hurts, doesn't really give us a lot of ability to alter what we're doing in any type of way, versus if you were saying, I'm feeling a tension sensation, or I'm feeling a numb or tingling sensation, or it feels like I've got like a needle poking me in this spot versus it's achy. All of that tells us something different and how we can adjust that particular exercise in that moment to either make it better or just pick a new exercise altogether. If it sounds like it's a contraindication to a degree, that we need to just scrap that and pick a new one.
Yep. Or like, oh, that sounds a little bit like a nerve issue. Maybe we shouldn't mess with it. Like, we don't want to poke the bear too much on that one today.
Right. Or
things like that.
it just seems like a tension issue around the knee. Maybe we can pull the voodoo floss out, we can get a little mobility back, and then we can get back right to the exercise. Could be anywhere in the spectrum. So understanding how to communicate with us is huge and will save us a ton of time. So that's another talk that we have throughout the program.
Also, like when you're like playing soccer back in the day, I was like, oh, you got a hard tackle and you're kind of banged up a little bit. It's like, hey, are you hurt or are you injured? Like your coaches will always ask you that. Like, I'm just hurt a little bit. Like, all right, get back out there, champ. Like, we need you on the field. But if it's like, no, I'm injured. Like, I can't lift my leg. Like, dang it. And then they make a substitution. So it's like hurt doesn't really tell us much necessarily. So what is that? Like, I want to start distinguishing between things like that. It's funny.
Exactly. It's all going to help the program get put together even that much better and that much faster. We do have a couple of other specialists that are going to be involved in the Return to Play program. We mentioned the concussion side of things. We have Ben Velasquez, who is recently found us and very interested in helping us develop this program. He has worked with a number of pro athletes and college athletes and all various sports, mainly around concussion-heavy sports. So think football, figure skating, or even equestrian, he mentioned, because all of those have repetitive bouncing, or if you're figure skating and you fall and you hit the ice, you're going to take some spills. So those types of sports are kind of where he has been in a little bit more. So baseball, things like that, rotational. But we also have another specialist, Aisa, who is a physical therapist that kind of focuses a little more on trying to address the entire body as a unit rather than just honing in on one particular spot that you're experiencing pain at that point, which is really what I think Dane and I have come to fill in as far as our niche, is filling the gap between those physical therapists who just treat that localized area that you came to see them for. We would pick up and help you reintegrate the entire system and help you improve your movement so there's no longer that dysfunction creating that symptom of pain.
Right.
Aisa has discovered about what we're doing with this program and is very excited to come on board as someone who could be a specialist for anyone that comes and sees us with specifically pelvic floor issues or some of these slightly more nuanced pieces where it would be good to have a physical therapist eye for a few sessions and then perhaps get handed back to Dane or myself for the rest of that full body integration approach. So finding these different experts in their fields and being able to utilize them for a couple sessions, an entire block of training, however seems most necessary for that client. We're trying to have all the tools at our disposal so that we can really meet you at your current level and help you get out of that plateau that you may have felt stuck in because maybe that last practitioner didn't have the desire or the know-how to want to pursue any farther. They got you to what they felt was good, and that's where they were able to be most helpful. But creating that next step where physical therapists know, hey, I can send you to these guys. They know what they're doing. They can carry on exactly what we've been working on strength balance-wise, and now take it to that next level where we're reintegrating like standard strength training stuff with those imbalance forward corrective exercises.
Yeah, it's like I always say, like the physical therapy is great if physical therapy is what you need. And you could say the same for everything, right? Like a chiropractor is great if you need a chiropractor. But if you don't really need a chiropractor, you don't need that adjustment, then just going there doesn't necessarily solve your problem. So it's like picking the right tool for the job, essentially. And then physical therapy, it might be more specified. So like, yeah, I'm going to treat your knee, like you mentioned. So, okay, treat the knee, get the knee feeling better. But then now there's still a gap between what do you actually want to do? Oh, you want to go squat? Or you want to get better at squatting again? Or you want to go on a hike? It's like, okay, now we need to get you to the point and integrate you to exercises so that you can do that hike or you can squat again. Like that's the movement approach versus just that isolated approach.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people who don't understand that just because they're exercising, they don't understand why they're not inching towards those goals that they have set. This is where what we are trying to do is really help you go from just exercising to your training. The difference being training has a very specific plan to get you to that goal versus exercising is just kind of like, I'm just going in and doing whatever today.
Yeah.
If you've ever felt like you're just kind of like walking around the gym and just like, I don't know what I'm going to do next.
I just want to work up a sweat.
You're probably just exercising, and we need to find a plan, find some sort of structure if you really want to achieve those goals, because it needs to be a priority, or those goals are just going to maintain that elusiveness for years and years.
Yeah, and I think we see that a lot. It's a bit of like a market out there now, and like I always felt like some of my friends, I'm like, I hate fitness. They're like, what do you mean? You're a trainer. I'm like, yeah, fitness is just so shitty. Like,
it's a hard field.
Like everybody is just like, it's like the next new version of boot camp class, and it's just like exercises. Any idiot can write up 20 exercises on the board and say, do these for 45 minutes straight. And then, yeah, of course you're going to work up a sweat, and of course you're going to be sore the next day. And it's like, what is that doing for you long term?
Yeah, not a whole lot. And
not much quality control in it as well. Like, so if we're building, like you mentioned, building on top of a dysfunction, and I just did a bunch of movement, like, what are we doing? They're just there to work up the sweat, and it's like, cool, if you want to sweat and breathe hard, and it has its place. Like, it's not terrible to do sometimes, but you need to be reinforcing the proper patterns. And like, what are you trying to achieve? A 45-minute workout, or are you trying to do something specific with it in terms of a goal and fitness? Like, and then that comes into maybe goal setting type work, where it's like, oh, I just want to lose 15 pounds, and it's like, okay, like, what does that even mean?
What does that mean to you? What does that look like for you? Are you able to do a pull-up now because you lost 15 pounds? Are you able to?
Because then the real goal is actually
do a pull-up.
Yeah. Or like weight loss versus fat loss is very different. So you might actually get stronger, look better, feel better. Everything is remarkably improved. Even their blood work and these types of things we're talking about with bio-op, all of that stuff could be trending upwards. But maybe you actually gained 5 pounds, or you only lost 5 pounds instead of losing 15 pounds. But like, your clothes fit better, you look nice, like
you feel better.
You feel good, and like, so what does that goal mean? So it's like coming down into that. Like, you can dig so deep into some of that stuff.
It gets to be very nuanced, and we're here trying to do a lot of that work for you so that your experience with us in Return to Play is as targeted as possible. Our assessment is more than one session, because we want to see how your tissues respond to what we're implementing, and then see, does it seem like a situation where we need a chiropractic adjustment? Does it seem like a situation where you need a fascial specific massage to get that trigger point released so that we can actually get some movement in that psoas and think about retraining the gait that is your main issue? So there's these little pieces of the puzzle that we're going to try to help you piece together so that you're not like, I wonder if a chiropractor visit would help. But we can kind of give you that reassurance, like, based on what we are seeing, it seems like there's a SI miscommunication or misalignment. I think a chiropractic adjustment would be a good reset for you. Or I think maybe 4 sessions with Aisa for some pelvic floor work would be great. And then we'll take those exercises and then reintegrate them back into our overall Return to Play program. Or if you have a concussion or a vestibular issue, we would have Ben come in for 2 sessions and do a couple of protocols that he has, get you running with that, and then we kind of bring you back into the rest of the full picture with the rest of Return to Play. And understanding where each of these practitioners has their place is really some of the more challenging piece for you as an individual to understand, unless you kind of have it really broken down. And the best way I've sort of come to describe this is treating it like a complex rocket system, right? There's hardware, which I would equate to your bones, your ligament bone-to-bone attachments, right? That's a chiropractor realm, right? They can adjust the hardware that's there, but the highway they're targeting is going to clear up, but it's not necessarily getting new input yet. The fascia work that you get when you see a massage therapist, the fascia is kind of like the telecoms wires between your hardware and the software. That's again just helping open up the communication lines between your brain and your muscles. What we're trying to do as far as the corrective exercises go is we're sending new signals to try and re-distinguish these better movement patterns from the old movement patterns, and essentially upgrading your software. So when you kind of understand these different pieces of how the body works, you can sort of relate it to, okay, well, that makes sense. If this is broken with my computer, I go take it to Geek Squad, versus if this is broken with my computer, I need to do a software update, or this is broken with my computer. That means the hardware is malfunctioning. I just need a new computer now. Unfortunately, you can't just do a chiropractic adjustment to your computer and the hardware is up to date now.
Have we tried unplugging it and plugging it back in?
That may be the secret, right? So that's kind of what I've landed on the most recent, as far as trying to help the average person understand, where does a chiropractor come in, where does a massage come in, where does strength training or movement retraining come in, and it's that hardware software communication line.
Yeah. So
What
like,
do you think?
make sure I got it right. Like an example, if you did, so we went to the chiropractor, you got your adjustment, like let's say your SI joint keeps popping out, so you get it adjusted. But without potential, if you just like go carry on with your day, do the normal crap that you normally would do, there's the potential for it to just still, it's back in place, but it's still unstable. No stability has been done yet, so it could just pop right back out.
Exactly.
Versus if you got it set back in, and then now come over to us, do some stability and exercises building in towards like basically stability, but maybe a touch of strength to reinforce the patterns, then now you're lessening the chance that will pop out again in the future.
Exactly. And that's really something we've noticed with a lot of clients who tend to over rely on the chiropractic care or the massage therapist. They're just like, well, it works, and then I just have to go back in a few weeks. Well, if it keeps coming back and you have to keep getting it re-put back in place, something's not jiving right in that system, and we need to tweak what demand is being placed on it that is causing it to shift back out of demand, whether it's the way you sleep that keeps doing it, if it's the way you're walking that keeps doing it. But getting that adjustment improves that alignment, so when you come in to train with us, that training is going to be more effective because your nervous system is communicating well. Ideally, being back in alignment should mean you're getting much more efficient signaling. Two, those new patterns that we're giving you have a much higher chance of being retained by the body because that highway is cleared up. And if we do a chiropractic adjustment and we do a training session and we still feel like we didn't really see much difference in how you performed this exercise or that exercise, maybe there's something else. Maybe we need that fascial release. Maybe there's a need for both. So you do the one chiropractic adjustment to get the hardware kind of realigned. You see that fascia expert for the quick release in the psoas. So now your spine is in a little better place. You don't have that locked up tension here that was causing that hip hike. So now when we go and redo our first pieces of normal squat or any hinging or any of that stuff, you've kind of got a little bit of that fixed ahead of time, so you're more likely to perform it properly.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, okay. Another example is like if you're, like let's say your hamstrings are just so tight. Like one of the assessments we do is, can you bend over and touch your toes, essentially, in simple. But let's say you're like 10 inches off the floor. It's not that much of a shock if you tell me that you have back pain. So, but you could go get a massage and your back will feel better for sure, but you haven't improved your range of motion. So the same tissues are going to get chronically overloaded, potentially causing that back pain again. So then you're just stuck in a massage and it feels better for a massage and it feels better. Okay, massage. Like, you need to do something about those tight hamstrings because that's the root of the problem.
And how do we fix tight hamstrings?
Just movement.
Yes.
Lengthen and strengthen.
Lengthen and strengthen through a full range of motion.
But initially it will be full range of motion to what they have, maybe like an inch at a time, slowly like kind of poking the bear with it, like how far do we get down. But it doesn't mean just go straight into full range of motion training, because then we know that the body can't go there.
Yep.
So if you try to put it there, probably going to have injury as well. So then it's like toeing that line of what needs fixing. Is it a mobility problem? Is it a stability problem? A strength problem? Or is it just a skill you don't understand where your body is in space? Like, then we can correct and say, hey, but like I could tell you straighten your back, straighten your back, straighten your back all I want. If you can't touch your toes, you're not gonna be able to straighten your back at the bottom of deadlift. So it's like restoring that movement capacity, movement ability versus just exercising more. It's like, yeah, I did a chiropractor. I'm gonna go exercise now. I'm gonna go do my workout. The dysfunction is still there. So we're trying to get to the movement dysfunction and movement limitations and fix those things.
Because that tends to be the root cause. That's really what it comes down to. And a lot of what we see is people will spend a year and a half. I've been doing chiropractic for once a week for 12 months now, and like you're not doing any training to help anything actually get out of that cycle.
And then they're like stuck. They're basically stuck with that recurring appointment.
And now you're like, well, I've paid like $4,000 to my chiropractor this year, And like we're trying to help you navigate all of these different professionals so that it can be as efficient and financially manageable as possible. So if you just are relying on the one practitioner to be the one piece that fixes it, you're probably going to just end up having to keep paying that person to relieve it temporarily, whereas you could have maybe had to spend just a little bit more upfront and see 2 or 3 different practitioners that kind of complement each other in a way that now saves you from that ultra high accumulation of wellness dollars spent that year because you're a little more targeted. You know, maybe you did 2 sessions with the fascial release, you did a handful of sessions with the chiropractor, got you back to normal. But because we were doing our return to play corrective exercise stuff, that was all you needed. You didn't need 30, 40, 50 sessions with the chiropractor to take care of this issue because you were fixing the hardware, you were understanding the communication system needed a break. Now when we do these corrective exercises, you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck. And it's just looking at it as a proactive versus a reactive form of healthcare.
Yeah, I feel like the system is probably in part to blame for that, because it's like people maybe they'll run into these issues and it's like, oh well, we're not covered by insurance, so then they just go to what's covered by insurance, and then likely, in my experience, the best chiropractors or the best physical therapists, they don't take insurance, so then they're like, okay, well I can't go to that person that you recommended me, so let me take a look at this list. Okay, they go to whatever's covered by their insurance, and then it doesn't solve it.
Before it's just jazz.
Yeah. They're just the cog in the system. And not.
Yep.
So you may notice that too. As you come into our system of return to play, most of the practitioners so far that we have resonated with are in that category. A lot of them aren't in the insurance accepting space. So that kind of brings us to just acknowledging that there is a lot of room to grow in how our care system operates here in the US, and I think
You hear people call it sick care all the time, right? It's like, because it doesn't kick in, or
until you're already like actually
you're
sick.
and then it's
So,
like,
like,
okay, yeah.
It's like, all right, well, now you have to have this pill. You waited too long. We can't do any sort of like sunlight or sleep therapy. You got to have to just take this pill. And it's the only solution. So one of our other partners, we're kind of encouraging even our employees to go this route instead of a traditional healthcare option. We're encouraging people go seek out something like Crowd Health, which is more of a health sharing operation rather than a just siphoning money from everyone and not really maximizing the dollar when it comes to the client's spend on their healthcare. And what Crowd Health will do is if you have an issue, you just call them, your care advocate answers, they say, okay, you need a root canal, not a problem, let's call around, let's see if we can get you the best bang for your buck as far as quality and cost. We're going to call you back in a couple of hours, we'll see what we got. Technically, root canals are not covered under their plan, but they will still help you find the best deal for it, even if it's not something that is covered. I think the dental is one of the only things that's still not fully roped into the Crowd Health stuff, but they will still do the shopping for you, and they will still negotiate your bill down for you. Yes. If you go to the hospital, same thing. They'll call the hospital and be like, why did you charge my client $1,000 for a saline bag? That's like a $50 item. What's up with that? So they will make that $100,000 bill look like $22,000 by the time they're done talking, and then the crowd pays that price
Distributed among a bunch of people.
the whole crowd.
Whatever the crowd is. Yeah.
Yep. So you pay a much more minimal monthly rate. You have one ask a month. So-and-so needs $120 towards her gallbladder surgery. Approve.
So
Goes in, and it keeps the whole crowd accountable for helping each other.
what happens if you deny that?
If you deny that, then you have a generosity score that just gets a little bit docked. Okay. So now when you say, hey, I need help with this car accident,
credit score gets docked.
You've only been 99% generous with the crowd.
Okay.
Maybe someone is going to see that and be like, well, maybe now I feel like
No, they decline back. Okay.
But their score then goes down.
Okay.
So it is still really reinforcing on like, well, maybe they didn't help someone one time.
Yeah.
I don't want to have my score go down. I'm still going to help that person out when they need it. So the incentive is there to still always help whoever is requesting it. But knowing that the crowd as a whole has someone to negotiate these bills down on our behalf as the patients has been really cool to watch. And just knowing that they only make money based on me telling more people about the crowd like I'm doing right now. They don't make any more money by sending me to this guy first, and then that guy second, and then that guy third, and then now I can get the MRI because the X-ray didn't show anything. My PT wasn't successful. Now we'll order the MRI.
Yeah.
Well, you could have just paid $200, gotten the MRI right away, and had a much more strategic, targeted plan of attack.
Cash, right? You mentioned, I was trying to understand it yesterday. It's cash still. It's not an insurance.
Anywhere you go, there's no networks. That's another big thing about it. But anywhere you go, you just tell them, hey, I'm cash pay.
Can go to any provider.
Any provider.
Okay.
Bill me later.
And then I was just looking it up too. It's like $55 a month. I want to make sure that I have it right because I was trying to understand.
Yeah, I know you've been looking into maybe
$55 a month, but then you mentioned that you might end up paying like $120 to help a person. Or you will every month. There's one.
There's one request that comes every month. Yep.
So then that's still less than $200 a month,
Give or take, yeah.
compared to maybe what just a regular insurance would be.
$400, $500, $600, $700 a month, depending on your situation.
I was trying to see how it compares with some of that. Then the only thing is if you do have a health event, you're paying whatever the cash price of it is, but only if you have an issue, right?
So
And the credit covers the rest of it.
they treat it kind of like a deductible. So if you had I got hit by a car while I was on my bicycle. I, being the person who has Crowd Health, I would be like, hey, I had to go to the hospital. I ended up having to get x-rays, this and that and that. My hospital bill was $38,000 for getting hit by the bike. I would only be out $500 as that person. That's my deductible.
Yeah. Okay.
The crowd would pay for the other $29,000, whatever.
But they'll negotiate it down to like 5,000.
Correct. They might negotiate it down to 5 or 6 so that I pay $500. The crowd actually, instead of paying $30,000, the crowd pays $4,500.
Yeah, and then distributed across all the people, it's like $90 each.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Okay. So
That's interesting. Yeah.
it's much more patient care forward, much more experience forward, much more trying to call the hospitals out and the insurance companies out for just making up numbers and being like, just charge them $1,000 for that bag. Charge them, let's go $2,000 for that scan today. Oh, well, we had a slow day, so actually those are $10,000 this month.
Yeah.
It saves all that headache. I don't have to call the hospital and negotiate. So if you're looking for something that's not that traditional healthcare system, check out Join Crowd Health. We'll try to make sure we stick a link down below for anyone who might be interested, along with a referral link that might make it even more streamlined for you. So stay tuned for that. That's kind of the health insurance alternative. We have Biooptimization Institute here in-house at St. P Calisthenics, and they could be someone who you almost see as instead of going to my primary care doctor for this blood work, I'm going to have someone run a complete panel that's maybe not going to tell me, hey, you're a healthy 26-year-old. You don't actually need to check your testosterone. But Biooptimization Institute is going to be like, oh, that's smart. You're 26 years old and you're at your peak testosterone production years. Let's see where you're at as a baseline. So when you need replacement in 12 or 15 years, you know where your body feels best at. So that's a very smart, proactive way to go. Let's definitely do that.
Yeah, you have some idea of where you started. Yeah.
Right. And I actually, speaking on that story, that was what I experienced when I was in my mid-20s, telling the doctor, hey, I want to know where my baseline is at. I know I have my annual blood work coming up. Can we make sure it's testing for testosterone?
They're like, yeah, we don't do that.
He was like, well, the normal panel doesn't have that. You have to pay extra for that. And I was like, I have to pay extra? I'm like, that seems like a fairly simple request to check my testosterone. And he was like, well, you're going to have to pay a little extra for that. Insurance doesn't cover that for your age and your situation. You're a healthy 26-year-old. It's not a necessary thing. I'm like, well, I want it done anyway. So I had to pay extra to get that number checked. And I think that was the moment where I realized that the standard system was not really looking out for my best interests. And I had to try and find a way to be a part of that new solution going forwards, because I had already had a number of clients for a few years who have navigated this system and had a lot of headaches. I'm like, well, why don't you just go get the MRI? Well, I have to go get the x-ray first, and then they want me to try 4 sessions of PT, and then they want me to do this specialist, and then if it's still not better, I'll get the MRI.
I have to go back and get a special note.
And I'm like, here 6 weeks later, I'm like, did you figure that out yet? They're like, no, I'm still waiting on this person, and then they rescheduled on me, and they rescheduled on me twice, and now it's 6 months later, and your knee's worse.
Have you ever had someone that were like, oh yeah, we only took the image of the the other, like the back of your shoulder, not the front, not the side of your shoulder. You need to come back again and get the side of your shoulder because we can't see from there. And I'm like, we went through all these hoops and then they took it of the wrong like side of the shoulder. Like, just do the whole damn shoulder. See what's going on in that baby.
Yeah, it's really sad. So we're trying to be a part of that next step in the right direction as far as taking control of your health, and you really do have to be your own best advocate because the doctors, they don't have enough time to spend with you. They answer to insurance companies, not you. And their bottom line is more important to them staying in business than getting you that most speedy result possible.
That's one of our things with Return to Play. It's like doctors only spend 10 or 15 minutes with you, but we have the whole initial assessment, which is 1 to 2 hours, depending on how long we go down the rabbit hole and how long we chat. And then it's 4 additional sessions on top of that, which is ongoing assessment. So at minimum, that's 4 plus
4 to 6 hours.
6, yeah. So 4 to 6 hours, give or take. And then it doesn't end there because you may still have more sessions after, or you integrate into the small group training. So then it's like, as a good coach, basically every session or every movement that you do is an assessment. But those are like the official assessments, at least, is like 4 to 6 hours, which is in big contrast to 15 minutes. Like, oh yeah, sure, okay, yeah, looks good.
And that's
wait, but I have a question.
That's something I think with the active life stuff and you understanding that whole comprehensive nature of it, that's really what I realized was the biggest factor in helping people actually get that success is really treating the whole body and taking into account. And like, I'll have some clients where like a year and a half goes by and I'm like, you never told me that.
Yeah. Like, what?
Like, we've been training this way for however long, and you never mentioned that you broke your ankle in like 6th grade. Like, normally I'm asking about that stuff earlier and earlier now, but this was, you know, an example from, 5 or 8 years ago, probably.
I'd say even trainers, you can have the best intentions as a trainer or whatever you do, and then you just get stuck in the mold of like, oh yeah, like fill out this intake sheet and whatever they write on it, and then it just gets filed away, and it's like you don't actually discuss anything related to the injuries, like what they're doing. Like, all right, yeah, let's get working out, let's get moving, and then you don't know how to coach or solve problems, so then you just just add more stuff so they feel like they got value today. But actually, you're providing way less value than if you just sit and talk with them and develop out a plan like we do.
It's kind of my gripe with some of the more popular boot camp style things and them aiming their marketing towards kind of the middle-aged women.
Yeah.
And that really not being the most ideal style of lifting for that age group hormonally, and going back to the whole like lifting for exercise, not training. Those types of places tend to just burn calories. Like, you're just there burning calories for an hour. What you're doing doesn't tend to often build the muscle that's going to help you burn those calories 24 hours a day.
Strength training, resistance training.
And it's the difference in the challenge that I have with the HIIT style stuff versus like proper strength training and intentionally recovering and progressive overload and all this stuff. And like, if you're just coming and getting your butt kicked in a class, you're just burning calories for an hour, but you're not really, especially if you're coming to a CrossFit class every day or you're doing, such a frequency, like there's no way your body's recovering. So you're only getting a short-term calorie burn and then a stressor with no recovery. So that's just leading down that path of like creeping closer and closer and closer to injury or exhaustion, or I've been doing boot camp for 3 years and
had to say that you should do some form of intensity.
Yes, definitely. Not saying don't do it.
But the problem is when you do it every day or you overdo it.
Like, it's only type of training.
That's the only thing you do. Yeah, it's like, all right, now you're just running it down. Yeah.
Everything you do is 20 reps and very lightweight.
The funny thing is too, it's like we talk about this like this fitness versus that fitness, and then these guys versus these guys, and it's like majority of people in America don't do anything. So it's hard to like discourage them from doing something.
Anything. Yeah, agreed.
But then like we want to still develop them in the best possible way.
My efficiency brain is like ticks in. I'm like, well, what's the most efficient way for you to get that goal that you're telling me about? And I realized a lot of people are training or exercising in ways that don't align with the goal that they have. Whether it's I want to lose weight, I'm like, well, in order to do that, we need that basal metabolic rate to go up. And the only way to do that is if you put on muscle mass.
Yeah.
So that means you have to strength train. Yeah. And that means if all you're doing is cardio, you're not going to get that. So we need to do something other than Orange Theory. or
they hear that all the time. Pull up. They want the pull up. Like a lady's been doing Orange Theory for all these years. And like, oh, Orange Theory doesn't align with the goal of having a pull up. Like, how often have you worked on pull ups on your own. Like, oh, I don't. So your actions don't match any part of the ability to do a pull-up.
So trying to help you all align your training with the goal that you have and making sure that you enjoy whatever that bridge is. Because if you don't enjoy what that is, you're probably not going to stick with it enough. So either you need to enjoy the idea of that outcome enough that you're willing to stick through that not enjoyable period of time, or you need to find a goal and a method of getting to that goal that you find enjoyable enough to just stay consistent.
Yeah.
That's a biggest thing that I found. I'm like, people aren't doing things that are fun enough, so they're just falling off of everything. Like, you'll strength train with me for a few years, but I was what made it fun.
Yeah.
So now you go try and train without me, and you're like, wow, the gym sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I was there for you and like our conversations and whatever,
Yeah.
but you weren't actually enjoying the lifting.
That's the whole play aspect of it. Return to play. Like, it's supposed to be fun.
What I realized doing strength training, like teaching people strength training for 10 years, is I was getting good at all these strength training lifts myself, and my squat, bench, deadlift, all that was going up and this and that. But like the most fun that I had in my week was like doing my 100 pull-ups, playing with animal flow, doing the weird, like trying to get a handstand finally. Those were the things that I enjoyed doing. And I realized I was like, well, that's really what's starting to draw me in, is more of like what's fun, but also in the goals that I have.
Body weight movement.
And I started realizing, I was like, man, I'm helping people with all these injuries and stuff by getting back to body weight movement mechanics. I realized I was having more fun doing that stuff on my own as well. And I was starting to just get the vision for what this place has now started to become, which is
super cool.
Not really trying to get you to stop powerlifting or stop bodybuilding or stop going to the CrossFit classes if that's what you like to do. But the whole point is do something you enjoy, do it without limitations, and make sure it's getting you closer to the goals that you have. If it's not doing all three of those, then something is worth playing with.
I agree.
Have any other final thoughts on our Health is Wealth event? I think is the last thing that I wanted to make sure we mentioned before we tie up.
Yeah, Dr. Aisa, you mentioned her before.
Yep.
And we should shout out her book too.
Yes, Connect the Body Dots by Dr. Aisa McGraw. She is going to be doing a workshop here with us soon. You guys that follow us on Instagram already should be able to see that ticket link available on there already, but it will be going into all of the different things, mind, body, and spirit, needed to help get your system in check and treat your health like it is the new wealth, right? As the longevity craze is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, we're trying to make sure that as you chase longevity, that your quality of life is high enough to make it even worth getting that outcome. So she has a lot of different things in her book that help you understand how the mind reacts to the body and to stresses, and physiologically why certain things may be happening, not just tied to pelvic floor or physical therapy, but a very full body approach, which is where she resonated really well with what Dane and I are creating here with Return to Play.
We brought her in that day, and she was like, showed her a bunch of stuff, and she's like, have you guys read my book? Like, it's not out yet. Did you get a copy somehow?
It was, I think, a good reassurance for her that we align in a lot of ways, and then for us as well, bringing her on board, that she felt like it was something we plucked out of her head a little bit in a way. So keep an eye out for that. It is coming up in December. We will be having a movement portion as well as some speaker components to that workshop.
Will this podcast be out by then?
I am doing my best to make sure that it is. Lulu has the last couple edited up, so it's just a matter of trying to get those out a little quicker. But Dr. Aisa will also be making an appearance on the podcast soon. I'm trying to get her lined up for the next one I do, so hopefully that will also be out in time to help do a little bit of promo and familiarity stuff for that event, and you guys can get a first glance at what might be talked about during that workshop. I think to tie it all up, I think the main message for us today is kind of helping you understand that we're here to help navigate the system that has been disserving all of us so much, and trying to encourage everyone to start thinking of your health as something that is worth investing in versus just paying the price later. The return on investment should be huge to you as a proactive individual, because now I can travel when I retire. What we've seen a lot of our older generations do is they wait for retirement to go do the traveling, but now they haven't paid any attention to their body. So now they have a body that can't allow them to travel, especially not the way that they want to. If they had ideas of hiking Machu Picchu or doing this or doing that, now they're in a wheelchair, they need a cane, they need this, they're on oxygen, they need their meds, or whatever it could be is holding them back. Now that they have the time to do it, they don't have the body that will let them. So that's a big piece of what we're trying to do, is help you realize the benefit of investing in your health so that you can enjoy the next 80 years that you have without feeling like you're just constantly being pulled down by medical issue after medical issue. And like, there's 30 grand, there's a bunch of money, there's